What looked like a simple royal honor quickly became something far more painful behind palace walls. Prince George was given a ceremonial title, and to the public, the decision seemed almost obvious. He is the future king, so the honor appeared to fit perfectly. The palace released its polished statement, the photographs followed, and the world moved on. But according to the story surrounding the decision, Queen Camilla did not see it as a routine royal announcement. She reportedly saw it as the final answer to a question she had been quietly asking for years. Would her own family ever truly be accepted inside the monarchy? Her disappointment was not about Prince George himself. She was not angry that a child had received an honor. The deeper pain came from what the decision appeared to mean for her grandson, Freddie Parker Bowles. For years, Camilla had reportedly hoped that Freddie might one day receive some form of ceremonial recognition. Nothing that would place him above the direct heirs. Nothing that would change the line of succession. Just a small title or honor that would show her family had a place in the royal story. Instead, the announcement came without the private warning she had apparently expected. She learned about it through the same official statement that reached the public. And that detail changed everything. For Camilla, the message seemed impossible to ignore. She could stand beside the king. She could wear the crown. She could represent the institution. But when it came to the future of the monarchy, the line was being drawn somewhere else. This was no longer simply about Prince George receiving a title. It was about belonging. To understand why the decision reportedly hit Camilla so hard, you have to go back to the beginning of her complicated journey into royal life. Camilla did not enter the royal family with an easy public image. For years, she was one of the most criticized figures connected to the crown. Her relationship with Charles became one of the biggest royal controversies of its time, and public opinion was deeply divided. She was described in harsh terms by newspapers and commentators, and those labels followed her for years. Even after she married Charles, acceptance did not arrive overnight. She had gone from being one of the most controversial women connected to the monarchy to becoming a central member of the institution. Eventually, she became queen consort and later queen. But reaching the throne did not necessarily erase the emotional scars of the past. If anything, it appears to have changed what Camilla wanted most. She no longer needed the world to accept her personally. She wanted the people she loved to have a place too. Camilla has 2 children from her first marriage, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopez. Unlike Charles's sons, they were not born into the royal family. They did not carry royal titles, and they did not become working members of the firm. They were civilians. That distinction mattered. They could attend family occasions. They could appear in photographs. They could be welcomed into private gatherings. But there was still a clear boundary between being part of the family and being part of the monarchy. According to the storyline, Camilla increasingly wanted that boundary to become less obvious for the next generation. Her grandchildren represented something different. They were young, polished, connected to the royal family through her, and close enough to the crown that their presence naturally attracted attention. Freddie Parker Bowles, in particular, became part of the larger conversation surrounding Camilla's hopes for her family. She reportedly never demanded a title openly. Instead, the approach was much quieter. Invitations came first. Then came appearances. Then photographs. Little by little, Camilla's family seemed to become more visible around royal occasions. None of those moments alone proved anything. But taken together, supporters of this theory saw a pattern. Camilla appeared to be creating a bridge between her family and the institution she had spent decades fighting to enter. She did not need Freddie to become another Prince William. She did not need him to stand ahead of Prince George. She simply wanted the Parker Bowles grandchildren to be recognized as something more than outsiders standing near the royal family. That distinction is important because the real tension in this story was never about replacing the Windsors. It was about whether there could be room for a blended royal family. And that was where the problem began. Prince William and Catherine reportedly had a very different vision for the future. Their approach was built around simplicity, fewer working royals, clearer responsibilities, a smaller institution, and most importantly, a very clear understanding of who was officially part of the monarchy. For William, the crown could not become an organization where titles were handed out because of personal relationships. That would create confusion, could also create expectations. One honor could lead to another. One exception could become a tradition. And once that happened, reversing it would become almost impossible. So, according to the story, William wanted a firm line. Direct royal blood belonged inside the official structure. Marriage could bring someone into the family, but it did not automatically give their relatives a place in the royal hierarchy. That philosophy put him directly against Camilla's hopes, and the tension reportedly grew without either side openly declaring war. There were no dramatic public arguments, no shouting matches in front of cameras, no official statement saying that William rejected Camilla's wishes. Instead, the conflict existed in silence. And sometimes silence can be more powerful than an argument. Camilla reportedly continued to hope that Charles might eventually find a compromise. Charles had always been the person closest to her. He understood her history. He knew how much she had sacrificed to reach the position she now held. For years, according to the narrative, she believed Charles might eventually help create some form of recognition for her grandchildren. Perhaps not a major title. Perhaps not anything connected to succession. Just a symbolic honor. Something that would tell her family you belong here. But William was becoming increasingly important to the future of the institution. And that meant Camilla's hopes were running into a wall that was becoming harder to move. One moment in particular reportedly exposed the problem. During a royal Christmas gathering, Freddie was allegedly positioned close to Prince George and the younger generation. The location mattered because royal photographs are never completely meaningless. Where someone stands can become a message. Who appears beside whom can shape public perception. And if Freddie had appeared directly alongside George, Charlotte, and Louis, the image could have suggested something that the palace might not have wanted to communicate. That he belonged to the same official generation of royalty. According to the story, a senior courtier noticed the arrangement and moved Freddie away before the photographs were taken. Suddenly, he was no longer standing with the younger royals. He was placed farther back. And Camilla reportedly saw it happen. There was nothing she could realistically do. This was a Christmas gathering, surrounded by family, staff, photographers, and tradition. Demanding that her grandson be moved back would have created a scene. So she stayed quiet. But the moment supposedly stayed with her, because it represented something larger than one photograph. It showed her that the palace could separate her family from the direct royal line without ever saying the words aloud. The distinction was already there. The question was whether Camilla was finally ready to accept it. Apparently, she was not. For years, she had survived being treated as an outsider herself. She knew what it felt like to enter a room and wonder whether people truly accepted you. She knew what it meant to be judged by your past. And perhaps that was why her family's position mattered so much. If her children and grandchildren could become accepted by the institution, then maybe the story of her own life would finally feel complete. Her crown would not simply represent personal survival. It would represent a legacy. But William and Catherine reportedly saw the issue differently. They were building a future monarchy centered around their own children. George was the future king. Charlotte and Louis were part of the direct royal line. Their roles could change over time, but their place within the institution was clear. Adding another branch into that structure could create confusion. And William was determined to avoid that. According to the narrative, he did not need to publicly confront Camilla. He simply refused to open the door. That refusal reportedly became even clearer when the idea of giving Freddie some minor hereditary recognition was discussed. The proposal was not supposed to transform him into a major royal figure. It was described as something much smaller. A ceremonial honor. A title with little or no practical power. Something that could allow Freddie to appear at selected events without becoming part of the succession. To Camilla, that might have been enough. To William, even that could be too much. Because once the crown created an exception, another relative could eventually ask for one. And then another. The monarchy would slowly become harder to define. William's supporters would argue that he was protecting the institution. Camilla's supporters would argue that he was protecting a system that left her family permanently outside. Both sides could believe they were right. And that is what made the conflict so difficult. There was no simple villain. There were simply two very different visions of what the monarchy should become. Camilla wanted a family monarchy. William wanted a streamlined institution. and Charles was caught between them. That became the most uncomfortable part of the entire story. Charles loved Camilla. He had spent decades defending their relationship. He had endured public criticism for choosing her. He had eventually made her queen. So, when Camilla hoped he would help her family, she apparently believed he would understand. And Charles may have wanted to help. But wanting something and being able to deliver it are two completely different things. By the time Charles became king, William was not simply his eldest son. He was the next king. Every decision made during Charles's reign would eventually become part of the world William inherited. That meant Charles could not ignore William's concerns. According to the narrative, Charles tried to find a middle ground. One possible idea was to revive an old, largely symbolic honor that would not give Freddie a meaningful place in succession or royal power. It would simply create a ceremonial distinction. From Charles's perspective, it could have been a compromise. Camilla would receive something meaningful. William would not have to surrender control of the monarchy. The institution would remain unchanged. But William reportedly rejected even that. To him, the problem was not the size of the title. The problem was the principle. If Freddie received recognition because he was Camilla's grandson, the message could be interpreted as favoritism. And favoritism was exactly what the modern monarchy could not afford. So the compromise disappeared. Then came the announcement. Prince George would receive the ceremonial title. The future king would be formally recognized. To the public, it was almost impossible to argue against. George was born into the direct line. His role was already understood. The title simply reinforced what everyone already knew. But inside the palace, the decision reportedly carried another message. The future of the crown was Windsor-centered. There would be no major expansion of the royal family tree. There would be no special pathway for the Parker Bowles grandchildren. And Camilla's family would remain a family connection, not a royal branch. The announcement was released publicly. And Camilla reportedly had not been given the private warning she expected. Imagine what that moment would have felt like. She sees the official statement. She reads George's name. She understands immediately what it means. There is no alternative title. No special recognition for Freddie. No compromise. Nothing. The decision is already made. And everyone outside the palace is celebrating it as completely normal. For Camilla, according to the story, it was something else entirely. It was confirmation. Her family would never cross that invisible line. The reports surrounding her reaction describe a woman who was devastated. Not because she wanted George to lose his honor, but because she believed her own family had been rejected again. The emotional meaning was far greater than the title itself. She had spent decades earning a place in the institution. And now she was confronting the possibility that her own acceptance had limits. She could become queen, but her family could never become royal in the same way. That realization reportedly caused a serious emotional breakdown behind closed doors. Charles tried to explain the decision. Tradition. Public expectations. The future of the crown. Institutional stability. Those are the words royal families often use when personal emotions collide with public duty. But explanations do not always repair wounds. Camilla reportedly wanted something much simpler from Charles. She wanted to know whether he had fought for her, whether he had pushed back, whether he had tried to protect her feelings. And the question hanging over their private conversation was brutally simple. Did you even try? According to the narrative, Charles had tried to find a compromise. But he had ultimately chosen the institution. And that distinction mattered. Because Camilla did not simply feel rejected by William. She felt let down by Charles. William had never promised her anything. Charles had. At least emotionally. He was the person she believed would understand. He was the person who knew exactly what it had taken for her to stand beside him. So when he accepted the decision, the pain reportedly became much deeper. In the days that followed, Camilla was said to have withdrawn from several commitments. Official explanations focused on health and scheduling, but palace staff allegedly noticed a colder atmosphere around her. She was quieter, more distant, and small changes in a relationship can sometimes reveal more than public speeches. One detail from the story makes that point especially clear. Camilla had reportedly developed a private habit of helping Charles choose his ties each morning. It was a small ritual. Nothing official. Nothing connected to the crown. Just one of those private routines that couples develop after years together. After the title decision, that routine supposedly stopped. Charles's valet took over. There was no public argument.
No dramatica enfrentación.
Just silence. And Charles reportedly understood exactly why. The message was simple. Something between them had changed. Camilla had spent years proving that she could accept the rules of royal life. She accepted scrutiny. She accepted criticism. She accepted being judged. She accepted that her past would always be discussed. But now she was being asked to accept something different. That her legacy would stop with her. Her grandchildren could remain close to the family. They could attend Christmas. They could appear at weddings. They could stand beside the royals in private photographs. But they would not become part of the monarchy's official future. That distinction would become even more important as George grew older. Every new royal duty would reinforce his position. Every public appearance would remind people that he was being prepared for the throne. He would receive honors. He would be introduced to important figures. He would slowly learn the responsibilities waiting for him. Meanwhile, Camilla's grandchildren would remain outside that system. They could live close to royalty without actually being royal. That is perhaps the strangest part of the entire story. Imagine growing up around palaces and royal traditions, while knowing that the institution surrounding you does not officially belong to you. You can attend the family celebrations. You can share meals. You can stand for photographs. But when the formal announcements begin, your name disappears. For adults, that distinction may seem logical. For children, it can feel much more personal. The narrative even imagines a Christmas gathering where Freddie notices that his place at the table is different from George's. He sees the separation before he understands the reason, and eventually he asks why. That question would be almost impossible for any parent to answer without exposing the deeper family divide. Because what do you tell a child? That his grandmother is the queen but he is not royal. That his cousins have titles because of the family they were born into. That he is loved but still outside the institution. Those are complicated truths, and they reveal the real cost of the monarchy's strict hierarchy. William's supporters would say the rules are necessary. Without clear boundaries, the institution becomes too large, too expensive, too confusing. The public needs to know who works for the crown and who does not. That argument has strength, but there is another side. People pushed to the edge of a family do not necessarily stop feeling hurt simply because the rules are logical. Resentment can grow quietly. Nobody has to shout. Nobody has to leak a document. Nobody has to walk away. Sometimes distance is enough. And that is why the decision involving George could have consequences far beyond one ceremonial announcement. It could become a symbol of a much larger generational shift. Charles represents an older version of the monarchy. A monarchy built around tradition, compromise, and complicated family relationships. William represents something more modern, smaller, cleaner, more controlled, and Catherine appears to fit naturally into that vision. Together, they are raising children who already occupy clearly defined positions inside the institution. George is the future king. Charlotte and Louis are part of the direct line. Their public identities are being shaped from childhood. The Parker Bowles family exists beside that structure, but not inside it. And that is where Camilla's dream reportedly collided with William's plan. She wanted her family to be part of the legacy she helped build. William wanted the legacy to remain strictly defined. The title given to George therefore became more than a title. It became a line in the sand, a public declaration that the next generation would be centered around the direct Windsor bloodline. For Camilla, that was devastating. Her crown was secure. Her position beside Charles was secure. But her family remained outside. And perhaps that was the most painful irony of all. Camilla had spent years trying to become accepted by a family that once viewed her with suspicion. She eventually reached the highest possible position. Yet even after becoming queen, there were limits she could not cross. The crown could welcome her, but it would not automatically welcome her bloodline. That realization could leave a person asking a very uncomfortable question. What exactly had she won? She had won the title, She had won the position. She had won public recognition that once seemed impossible. But had she truly won belonging? That question sits at the heart of this entire story. Because if the reports and claims surrounding this episode are viewed as a dramatized account rather than confirmed palace fact, the emotional conflict still reveals something interesting about royal life. The monarchy is not simply a family. It is an institution. And those two identities do not always agree. A family wants to protect everyone. An institution has to choose priorities. A grandmother sees her grandson. The future king sees a system. Charles sees his wife. William sees the crown he will one day inherit. And when those visions collide, Camilla is left caught in the middle. She cannot fight the decision publicly. She can only smile, stand beside Charles, and continue playing the role of queen. But behind the palace doors, the message is painful. Her family may always remain connected to royalty without ever becoming royal. George's path is already clear. Every honor prepares him for the throne, while Freddie's future follows a completely different road. William's priority is the institution, not emotional exceptions. He is protecting the monarchy he will eventually inherit. For Camilla, however, it was personal. She wanted her years of sacrifice to mean something for her grandchildren. Instead, George's title reportedly felt like a door closing forever. She may wear the crown, but she cannot rewrite the rules. Her family can be loved, welcomed, and present, but the future remains firmly with the direct Windsor line. And perhaps that is the real sting. Camilla finally became queen, only to discover that her family might never truly belong.